So I almost called him out. He did apologize.
All right, at this time, we're going to call to order the July 22nd regular city council meeting. All rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mayor King,
Here.
Councilman Osborne,
Here.
Councilman Niner. Here. Councilman Newberry. Here. Councilman Emo.
Quorum being present. If everyone has had an opportunity to look at the agenda, unless there's an objection, I'd like to approve the agenda as presented. Hearing no objections from council, the agenda is approved. We have two consent agendas. The first one is from the June 24th meeting. We've added the transcripts from the hearing into that. If everybody's had a chance to look through it, if there's no objections to the regular city council meeting minutes on the consent agenda as presented, hearing no objection, they're approved. Then we have the July 8th regular city council meeting on the consent agenda. Everybody's had a chance to look through them. Does anyone on council object to the consent agenda as presented? Hearing no objections, it is approved. I'm going to put things out of order here just real quick. I'm going to open up a public comment. If there's anyone here from the public that would like to comment on something not on the agenda, please step up, state your name, your address, and try to limit your remarks to 3 minutes.
John Zell, 205 South Campbell. Sorry. You're fine. I just wanted to speak regarding the fair. I was kind of upset about fireworks last time. I didn't even hear the fireworks. You guys even have them?
Yeah, Saturday night.
I couldn't hear the tractor pull. I don't know if you guys did something different, but bravo. Also, the parking situation. I did not have a single car parked on my street. None of my neighbors did. Whatever you guys did different this year was great. And I want to congratulate the city on that. You guys did fantastic.
Thank you.
I had zero impact on my life from that. I never really realized that I kind of dreaded that, and I really, I tolerate it. It's worth it. But you guys did fantastic. I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Anyone else? All right. So the next item is a public hearing regarding the development agreement for the Pleasant Hill Marketplace. To open the public hearing, I need a motion and a second to open the hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to open the public hearing. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Augsburg.
Yes.
Councilman Niner.
Yes.
Councilman Newberry. Yes. Councilman Emo. Yes.
All right, we are in a public hearing. All you, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Again, my name is Joe Lauber. For those who don't know me here this evening, our firm serves generally as the city attorney for Pleasant Hill, but I'm also here this evening in my additional capacity as the city's special counsel for economic development matters. On July 8th, council met and held statutorily required public hearings for the petition to establish the Pleasant Hill Marketplace Community Improvement District, which we'll refer to as a CID, and the plan for industrial development project and cost benefit analysis for the Pleasant Hill Marketplace project, which we'll refer to as the Chapter 100 plan this evening. At the conclusion of that meeting, council moved to direct the city staff and consultants to prepare all the necessary ordinances, agreements, and other documents necessary to to carry out the proposed development incentives application. As you saw in your council packet for this evening, we have done as directed. Before you this evening, for your consideration and possible approval, are an ordinance to approve the comprehensive development incentives agreement for the Pleasantville Marketplace, an ordinance to approve the petition for establishment of the Pleasantville Marketplace CID, which in it includes a blight study of the area and a finding of blight by the city council, and authorization for the mayor to sign a cooperative agreement among the city, the CID, the developer, and the developer, which cooperative agreement is Exhibit D to the development agreement. Additionally, you'll have in front of you an ordinance to approve the Chapter 100 plan and engage bond counsel to draft all the documents necessary to carry out the Chapter 100 financing outlined in the plan. At the last meeting, we provided a detailed summary of the development proposal and of the CID petition and the Chapter 100 plan. We won't go over those in detail again this evening, but I can answer questions if you have any about those. To refresh everyone's memory, I will quickly go through a summary of the proposal before we dive into a summary of all of the agreements in front of you this evening. But before I do that, I would like to take a moment to thank everyone for working together to allow us to get to this point this evening. In just 2 short weeks since your last meeting, both the city and the applicant's teams worked to finalize the negotiation of the agreements. Both sides worked very well together with collaborative give and take to make this the best deal possible for the city and its citizens, and also for the proposed developer. We are pleased to bring this exciting project forward for your consideration. Once I have completed my presentation, it would be appropriate for you, Mayor, to ask the applicant's representatives if they would like to have any additional information, if they would like to provide any additional information about the development and their request. When that is completed, we would ask the members of the public who would like to provide their thoughts on the proposal to speak. Okay, first, as we mentioned last time, it is important to get into the frame of mind that no one knows exactly what the future will unfold, or how the future will unfold. The numbers submitted by the applicant, reviewed and analyzed by the city's staff and consultants, and presented to you this evening are still just estimates and projections. When a developer approaches the city to request incentives, we work to determine whether the developer's numbers are justifiable, and further to determine whether they truly need incentives, and if so, how much. The but-for determination report that was in your packet last time, completed by Baker Tilly, is the city's financial consultant's review of the applicant's proposal. You may recall that we brought forward a term sheet in May that the council approved, and that term sheet serves as the foundation for the development agreement that is before you this evening. So again, the summary of the development. The development will be called the Pleasant Hill Marketplace. The developer is Cadence Commercial Real Estate, LLC. As is normal, the applicant has now formed a sole purpose entity that will be responsible for carrying out the development. Most developers will do that to isolate potential liability from project to project, so one project doesn't pull another project down. The new entity name is Pleasant Hill Marketplace, LLC, and that is who you will see as the signatory, the signing company on all the documents. The redevelopment area is approximately 20 acres located at the northeast corner of 7 Highway and East 163rd Street. The square footage of the development is expected to be approximately 80,000 square feet. The grocery store will be about 60,000 square feet of that, with another approximate 20,000 square feet coming from the development of up to 5 pad sites by others. The total project costs are approximately $25.8 million, which the developer will provide up front to get the development up and running, the developer or the others that would build pad sites. The private projects improvements will be completed by the applicant, and the others will be about $16.5 million of this total cost. And the public project reimbursements are requested for about $9.3 million, or about 36% of the total project costs. The incentives request is about $9.3 million, and it has 3 components. The CID, which is a CID sales tax, the city shared sales tax reimbursement, and Chapter 100 incentives. The CID will be authorized to impose a 1% additional sales tax within the development area. The city's sales tax reimbursement will also apply to the entire development area. I want to make a note, last time I realized that when we talked about the city's shared sales tax component, I really only talked about the city's capital improvement sales taxes. The number I used was 1.75%. That number was correct. However, what I failed to do was mention that the 1% of that 1.75% is the city's general fund sales tax that would be generated by the area. The 0.75 is made up of those two capital improvements. So again, the numbers you received all correct. I should have done a better job of describing the fact that the general fund is in there. Any other sales taxes that you have that would apply on retail sales throughout the city are not affected by this. Just essentially that general fund and the two capital improvements, the total being 1.75%. And we'll get into additional detail, but I wanted to make sure that I stuck the landing on that tonight since I missed it last time. The applicant has agreed to a hard cap of $7.9 million of incentive between CID and shared sales tax components, and the projected completion date is approximately December 2026, of course, subject to excusable delays. So again, just a reminder, here's where they're looking at putting the project. So this is the northeast corner of 163rd and Missouri 7. The black box that you see there is the 20-acre development site on that larger parcel. This development site and that black box are also exactly where the CID boundaries will be that is subject to this approval tonight. And again, here is a proposed site plan that the developer submitted. I believe they said last time there have already been some adjustments to this plan, and as they work through it, things will, typically they'll move around. That will all be subject to the city's development code and the requirements you have there. But, currently, or at least in this picture, we have that 60,000 square foot grocery store and up to about 5 pad sites. And I think if I remember right, the applicant said last time that maybe the grocery store has shifted a little bit and kind of moved those pad sites around. Okay, with that, we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of what tonight is about. I'm going to go through initially, well actually I'm going to go through the development agreement, which is kind of holds everything together for this project. So the first document for your consideration this evening is the Comprehensive Development Incentives Agreement for the Pleasant Hill Marketplace, which we will refer to as the development agreement this evening. Your packet tonight included a staff report that provided a detailed summary of this agreement. I'm going to cover the high points for you this evening. This agreement lays out the ground rules for all the components of the incentives package. As you see here on the screen, Article 1 is where the defined terms of the agreement are provided. So anytime you're reading a contract or looking at a provision and you see all capital letters, initial caps on a term, that means that term is defined, usually in this definition section or elsewhere in the contract, but we usually try to keep all of that in the definition section. And so many times when you read, it might say city's shared sales tax, then you go to the definitions and you find out that that's the 1.75 that's subject to the general fund and so forth. But that way we don't have to keep explaining it throughout the contract. Article 2 is where the developer is required to do the development and the city is required to provide the incentives. That's really the long and short of what this is about, Article 2. So the city is required to provide the incentives so long as everything goes according to the plan, which is, the developer builds out, everything produces, it's there. So the developer will develop the 20-acre site into a 60,000 square foot grocery store and pad sites and the cost of that will be approximately $25.8 million. The city authorizes up to $9.56 million of incentives. The CID sales tax component of that, $5.8 million. The Chapter 100 financing and abatement, about $1.4 million, and the city's the sales tax sharing of about $2.2 million. I will direct your attention to section 2.06. It's an important term for the city and something that we worked quite a bit with on the developer. We appreciate their working with us on that section. It sets the reimbursement cap and provides protection to the city that if the grocery store is not built as promised, the incentive will be adjusted to remove the property tax abatement component. So why do I emphasize that? When we look at deals like this, as I mentioned right from the outset, these are always estimates, they're projections. You never really know exactly what you're gonna get. You don't know if there's gonna be a recession tomorrow. You don't know what the situation will be financially going forward as this project is built. So if the city agrees to provide a certain number of incentives, we wanna make sure that the city gets what the developer promised. And so here, what I will tell you is that if the developer is unable to, build the store, or what can be a more common occurrence is they're unable to get people to buy the pad sites or build stores on the pad sites. With the sales tax sharing and the CID incentives, those are self-regulating. If you don't produce something that sells food or goods or whatever the case may be, you won't produce sales tax, you won't get the reimbursement, okay? But the one thing that there was kind of a question about is, what if we give all this tax abatement and maybe they don't build the grocery store as big as what they said they would, or so forth. So one of the things that we work very hard with the developer on, and again, we appreciate their working with us on this, is that, and this is something that remains in their control. If they don't build a grocery store to the standard that they've promised, the size essentially, within 95%, we gave them some wiggle room on that, then that tax abatement piece could go away. Because otherwise, that is something, once it's owned by the city and you do the financing for 20 plus years, there's no reeling that one back otherwise. So we got a provision in there for you with respect to that, to kind of make sure that you get what was promised in return for those incentives. I'll also point you to section 2.07, which provides an administrative fee to the city so that the citizens aren't paying for the work that city employees will end up doing to administer the incentives, because this is very specific to this project, and because the city is in the business of getting taxes from the Missouri Department of Revenue and making sure that they get used for the proper purposes that are required by statutes. The city will provide that type of an administrative service to the developer, and there's a fee for that will cover that. So. This next slide here, we're going to talk about Article 3 of the development agreement. This article sets the ground rules for the Community Improvement District, or the CID. Article 3 includes, by reference, a cooperative agreement. Cooperative agreements are commonly entered into between cities, CIDs, and then if there's a developer involved, typically that's a three-party agreement. That's what this one is. It is included at Exhibit D of the development agreement, so there's really another agreement that is lumped in with this. So the cooperative agreement addresses how the CID sales tax would be imposed, collected, administered, and enforced. It outlines how the CID sales tax revenues will be used, which is you have to use them in connection with the statute, whereas the statute authorizes. It talks about the design, construction, financing, ownership, and maintenance of the CID improvements. It authorized the cities to keep records on behalf of the CID and to work with the CID board to provide notices and get council input on annual budgets as required by law. Once the CID is formed, the cooperative agreement will be entered into among the city, the CID, and the developer, and the ordinance that authorizes the city to enter into this agreement is part of what you're considering this evening. Article 4 of the development agreement requires the developer to follow the city's development and building codes for construction of the project, and requires the developer to submit a report to the city when it is complete to certify that they are following the contract and that all contractors and material suppliers have been paid. So we don't want to be in a situation where we're paying out incentives and then we find out that they weren't good partners. So, and these guys will be great partners, but you always put the protections in the contract. Article 5 addresses the necessary exchange of ownership for the property for the Chapter 100 portion of the development incentives, and references the documents that will be generated by the city's bond council in the future to set up the industrial revenue bonds and the lease purchase agreement for the grocery store. Remember, when we talked about Chapter 100, it's this kind of weird thing where the developer will sell the property to the city will lease it back as a part of the financing. So your bond council that does, the other types of bonds, we have votes on and things like that, they will become involved in this deal going forward, and you will see bond council come forward with some agreements, for a bond financing and also for a lease purchase agreement to pay the debt service on the bonds. That will happen in the next weeks or months once assuming that you approve this tonight. Those are future steps that you'll see. Article 5 also specifically addresses the city's sale back to the end of the sale of the property back to the developer at the end of the incentive period, and lays out the various documents in exhibits E, F, and H for that purpose. So again, they will sell it to you, you lease it to them, but then they have a requirement that they have to buy it back from you at the end, which they'll will. Let's see here. Article 6 of the development agreement provides the rules for the city's sales tax reimbursement. Once sales tax revenues for the project exceed $21 million per year, the city will begin sharing some of the sales tax revenues created. So as we covered at the beginning, I'll cover again now. It will be 50% of the 1.75% city sales taxes generated on the site, the 20-acre site. Okay, so again, that is 1% general fund, and then the other 0.75% is made up of 2 capital improvement sales taxes, which are addressed in your city code at section 42-60A and B. Any other city sales taxes are not affected. So if you have, for example, like a park sales tax, that will continue to flow through to the city to pay for parks and so forth. Also, with this type of an improvement, or this type of an incentives package, no other taxing jurisdictions' taxes will be affected. So if you ever did like a TIF, sometimes you'll be having other entities' sales taxes be affected. Here, that will not be the case. The city sales tax reimbursement is capped at 20 years or $2.2 million, whichever is first. And these several sections of the development agreement, or all those rules are lined out and in writing. Articles 7 through 10 were described in your staff report in your packets. These are what we would commonly call boilerplate terms. They're terms that are needed to administer the contract that don't necessarily get to the substance of the deal, if you will. It's important stuff, but it doesn't get to, what is this incentive request about and how are we going to do it? So I won't go over those unless you have one that you saw that you're like, oh, I have a question about that, but I did want to let you know about that. So Mayor, at this time, you may wish to invite representatives from the applicant to see if they have any additional information to provide this evening.
Would the applicant like to speak?
Sure.
Trip Ross, Gates Commercial Real Estate, 7939 Floyd Overmark campus. Thank you all. Glad to be back here. I'd like to echo Joe's comments. It was a quick 2 weeks, but glad that everyone was on board, rowing in the right direction. You all are very lucky to have great leadership here in Pleasant Hill. Shelby and her team were fantastic to deal with, and Joe, I appreciate you as well. One quick clarification, just 2 little things. The store did rotate definitively, and we'll face the highway. And then the single purpose entity, those are done for a variety of reasons. You hit the academic reason. Kings Commercial Real Estate has a completely separate ownership structure from the development entity, so that was the main reason for doing it. The last session I answered quite a few questions. This is also a lot of information, so happy to answer any more. Looking forward to proceeding with this project and sharing a timeline with you all to share with the public. I want to be clear that there's a certain path here. This is, as much as Joe said, these are hypothetical. Nobody knows what the future is going to bring. It's our plan to move forward as quickly as possible, as soon as tonight proceeds with approval. Hoping to have planning done by the end of this year, proceed to permit before the year ends, potentially second work getting them as well. So, again, I'd invite any questions.
Okay, Mayor, at this time would be appropriate to request any public comments on the development agreement this evening.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to address council?
Sorry. I just have two things actually, and one is about bond counsel. Do we have a bond counsel? Is that the county or who would handle that in the city? When you talked about bond counsel.
So the city has bond counsel. It is Gilmore and Dell. They do a lot of work kind of throughout the whole Midwest, actually. They're a firm that focuses on that type of activity. And so in the engagement letter, since that is the city's in the ordinance authorizes the city to engage Gilmore and Bell to do this particular work, but it does work for the city regularly.
I just wasn't sure if that was a law firm or a city bond thing. And the other thing I haven't, and this is just a statement for me, is that I'm all for this project, just so you know. And I believe that we need growth in Pleasant Hill. But one of the things that I would challenge that maybe we can look at is as we do grow, can we also get reporting on what the community involvement of those people that want to come in here and grow with us? Like, I don't know, I know this is a development firm, but like if Price Chopper could at some point present to us, how do they get more involved in the community? And how do they do more and have a bigger presence in the community other than just a bigger store? And that's just a comment for me. Thank you.
They, in the community, they do quite a bit of donations. They make a huge donation to like the Mayor's Christmas tree down here for helping families. And there's a lot of things that they also do in the community that I can always see if we can get someone here to talk about.
I just think it'd be just to hear it, you know.
Okay. Anybody else?
This is a bit of a yes or no question, but is there anyone on city council that can explain this in 5 minutes or less?
In 5 minutes or less? No?
But you can explain it all the way through,
I believe so, yes.
okay? And council members?
For the most part.
Okay. I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable understanding what we're signing up for here. For the record, I have no issue with the new Price Chopper. The 5 pad sites bothers me. I understand that Price Chopper is looking to make money on those too. When the city can't tell me how many vacant commercial businesses we have in town, and has anybody researched that in the last 2 weeks? Granted, 1 week's been pretty busy. Nobody knows. We're gonna add 6 more with no promise of what's gonna happen to the old Price Chopper building. Is it gonna sit there with a for sale sign on it? Are we gonna have signs out front that say pad sites available for the next 6 years? And my concern with that is that doesn't make Pleasant Hill look like a viable economic investment to other people. I hope the city council's taking that into consideration. Maybe you guys have something in the works I don't know about. I'm just here to state my case. I'd like to thank Joe for kind of explaining the chain of custody of the property a little bit. I did have one question. One of the slides showed 9.5 million. That slide shows 9.3 million. Is that the same money or is that 2 different values for 2 different things?
It's basically the same money. It kind of gets to the idea that this is a proposal with some estimates. Some of the numbers have interest in them, some of them don't, and that probably is a piece of that.
Okay. And then last time Shelby said the city was going to make some 20 million on this, estimated over 20 years. Is that before or after we caught the 9.3 million?
Go ahead.
So that estimate was based on the fiscal impact analysis, and it was 20 million over, really, in essence, even though the CID goes for 27 years, it's really over the 20 years, because all that affects the taxing entities. And that is net new income, and not just the city, that is for all taxing jurisdictions.
So the city makes 20 million.
Not just the city.
Can you explain that a little bit? I'm kind of slow.
Fire district has a sales tax. Fire
Okay.
district gets property tax, school district gets property tax,
So the
county
city's
has
not making the
taxes, so
full
it's
20
not,
million.
it's not just the city, but
Okay.
the full impact, to all taxing jurisdictions is about 20 million over the next 20 years.
And the 9.3 that the city has to cough up on this slide here comes from.
We're
the
not
city.
coughing that
We're
up.
not paying.
We're not paying
money.
that.
Okay, so that's our tax incentive to
Yes.
them.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
And so
so,
the 20 million is in addition to that.
okay, so we are coughing that up, just not out of pocket. It's gonna be given over time.
And it's not revenue that we have right now.
Okay. So, and then to be clear, if Price Chopper, which I don't think this would happen, but if they drive and blow away, the city still owns and controls that property. If they drive and blow away before they meet their goals and we still keep that, is that correct?
That will be covered in the lease purchase agreement that bond council brings forward. I can tell you in these projects, there is, I believe it's a deed of trust that's issued right off the bat, kind of like you would have with a mortgage if something were to happen. In the end, it would go to whoever's holding the private financing. In that case, it could be the developer's company, it might be the developer's bank, in that case, but, the city would not be, I guess, stuck, for lack of a better term, with the property if something were to fail. That would be, whichever, ultimately, when the bonds are sold to finance the project, there will be, it's gonna be an entity of some sort, whether it's the bank or the company itself, they will buy those bonds and then they will be the ones to redeem it.
Okay. I don't expect you guys to change your vote based on anything I say, but when I go to Harrisville Price Chopper, I look at all those vacant stores that are in a strip mall attached to it. I've never seen that full of businesses. When I go to Warrensburg and I drive out north of Walmart where the movie theater is, I have 15 businesses in a row, less than half occupancy. Does not make me think that that's a good place for me to go start a business. And I'm asking you to take that into consideration when you make these decisions. As has been done before, I've stood here and told you about things, and then they get brought up later where we told about blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying that for the record here. I don't have an issue with Price Chopper, but think about the vacant businesses you're adding to a town and you don't know how many vacant businesses you already have. Thank you.
I need that microphone there, John. So I'm just gonna say, to what you said, I know a lot of the projects that Cadence has done, and they have yet to not fill something.
Okay.
They already have discussions going on for backfill and all these things. There's a lot of things going on in the background.
Okay.
That until certain things are done, those things can't come to fruition.
Understand.
So, there is a lot of discussion and study going on, and I don't know who built different things in some of these different communities, but, I can tell you this, every city in this area that has lost a grocery store has suffered and never gotten another one again. So, I mean, there's just a lot of moving pieces here, and we will see 5 years from now what it looks like. Anything else?
Mayor, if there are no further public comments, I'll just state some next steps so everybody has an idea where we're headed. So later on tonight's agenda, the council will consider 3 bills related to this material. Bill 24-20 will approve that development agreement we just discussed. Bill 24-21 will approve the petition to establish the CID, make the blight finding, and authorize the CID to sign a cooperative agreement. Bill 24-22 approves the Chapter 100 plan and authorizes the city to engage bond counsel to assist with the Chapter 100 financing. If the council approves these bills this evening, staff will work with the developer to carry out the terms of all of the agreements, and the CAD will hold its first meeting and will call a mail ballot election for the sales tax, which will be voted on by the property owners within the CID. And within a few weeks or months, the city's bond council will present the documents to carry out the Chapter 100 financing that's described in the agreement that we talked about briefly this evening. it'll put those details, into light at that point. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to speak? All right, I need a motion and a second to come out of public hearing.
Make a motion to come out of public hearing.
I'll second.
Motion and second, roll call, please.
Councilman Augsburger,
Yes.
Councilman Niner,
Yes.
Councilman Newberry,
Yes.
Councilman Eno.
Yes.
All right, we are out of public hearing. Okay, we're gonna go through these bills. To get through these, is there, I mean, I think everybody's had an opportunity to speak. Is there anybody that has any additional new comments on the comprehensive development agreement, the community CID, and the chapter 100?
No.
All right. So the first item we have is bill number 24-20, an ordinance to authorize the mayor to execute a comprehensive development incentive agreement for Pleasant Hill Marketplace in Pleasant Hill, Missouri, and use of a portion of the city's sales tax revenue for such projects.
I'll make a motion to accept, Bill 2420 as written.
A second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Augsburger,
Yes.
Councilman Niner,
Yes.
Councilman Newberry,
Yes.
Councilman Eno.
Yes.
All right, bill passes. The next one is bill number 24-21, an ordinance approving a petition to establish the Pleasant Hill Marketplace Community Improvement District. Do I have a motion and a second concerning bill number 24-21?
I'll make another motion to accept 24-21, an ordinance approving a petition to establish Pleasant Hill Marketplace Community Improvement District.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Augsburger,
Yes.
Councilman Niner,
Yes.
Councilman Newberry,
Yes.
Councilman Eno.
Yes.
That bill passes. Bill number 24-22, an ordinance approving a plan for the industrial development project for the Pleasant Hill Marketplace, authorizing city staff to engage bond counsel for the issuance of industrial revenue bonds and authorizing certain other actions in connection with the issuance of bonds. Do I have a motion and a second concerning bill number 24-22?
I'll make a motion to accept, Bill number 24-22 as it's written.
A second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilman Augsburger,
Yes.
Councilman Niner,
Yes.
Councilman Newberry,
Yes.
Councilman Eno.
Yes.
All right, bill passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know you got places to go tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Looking
your
forward
wife.
to it.
Thank you.
Thank your wife.
Yeah, thank you, wife, for allowing you to be here. All right, the next item is a request for waiver of facility rental fees brought by Downtown Pleasant Hill Incorporated for the Big Creek Barbecue Bash.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to start this one, but I will ask Carla Murray if she has any comments on behalf of the requester. A couple months, it feels like now a couple months ago, Downtown Pleasant Hill Inc. had come to the council and said that they were interested in doing a barbecue competition at the fairgrounds. Throughout those conversations, what they're looking at is the Cass County Fairgrounds on October 4th and 5th, but the rental of that would really be the 3rd through the 6th. One of the things, they've already advertised the event, but one of the things that we made really clear is they could go ahead and advertise, obviously if they were comfortable, if council was not giving a waiver of the fees, that they could go ahead and advertise as is. So that event has already been advertised, it's on the Kansas City Barbecue Society, it's a sanctioned backyard barbecue competition. In addition to that, the event will include live music, beer tent, vendors, games, bounce houses. Staff has had an opportunity to meet with Ms. Murray regarding this application. Really will have a minimal impact on our operations. We are looking just at parking and everything on the south side, all contained on the Cass County Fairgrounds. So no additional traffic control. They'll be providing all of their own security. So it is truly, for the most part, just a fairgrounds rental. The city already has fees established for what a fairground rental looks like and with deposits. So typically, if it was somebody who was paying, this type of event would never come before the council. But the applicant or the requester has asked for a waiver of the fees. Our fee schedule would charge a total of $1,860 for this rental and an additional $1,900 deposit that gets returned if the facilities are returned in a good condition. And so at this point, staff can't make that waiver, and it's something that we would have to ask council for. And so that's kind of my overall, and I don't know, Carla, if you have more to share. Yeah.
No, I think Shelby, you did great. We are comfortable that this is something we want. We are comfortable that this is something we want to do, so we did go ahead and do it. In case y'all don't waive the fees, we're going to continue. But it would make the ability to offer more at the barbecue event if we can waive the fees. That's basically what it boils down to.
So, I'm gonna speak for a minute. I asked Downtown Pleasant Hill Incorporated to try to get us a use of the fairgrounds for future use of the fairgrounds to get more people there. That's a big waiver, on the amount, but my feeling is, this is just me, I would like to waive the fee for the first year so they can get their barbecue bash going in hopes that they will return next year. And if it's that big of a success, maybe not waive that much of the fees, if any. So that's just my opinion. Like I said, I asked for you guys to use the fairgrounds for us. And for this one event, I support that. But does council have questions or thoughts on it?
I was gonna say, Mayor, one of the other things that we've done in the past, whenever we have a kind of sizable waiver, is that we do ask to be a sponsor of it, kind of an in-kind sponsorship in exchange for that.
Are we still wanting the deposit, or is it just the waiver of the fees?
I really technically have no preference on that one. Typically, if we're kind of dealing with established groups throughout the community, we don't collect the deposit, and basically we kind of work out an agreement that says if by chance it's not, like, our standard is that it will be restored to the condition in which they found it, and if not, then we work through it, and typically it's on that entity to restore it, or choose to pay at that point.
Shelby, can I say something? I want to make something, I just want to make a point. You don't need that now? Just so you guys know, just so you guys know, we are like using the community center, but it's just for judges. So like the public won't be using the restrooms in there, and they won't be going in and out of the community center. So that's really where I think we would be most likely to experience some damage if we had people just running through there. And it's gonna be sealed off to the public because that's where the KCBS judges are gonna be. And then we are gonna have porta potties. So I just wanna make that clear because to me, hearing this, if I were a resident, I'd be like, well, they're gonna destroy the community center if they don't, but they're not gonna be in there, so. Thanks, Shelby.
Anyone else from council? Thoughts?
I tend to agree with what John said, but first time you do something, and you learn a lot.
Yeah.
You learn a lot. And I think you deserve an opportunity with the books clean, and hopefully we can find out how it went in the end. I would be willing to agree that we waive those fees this first time, so long as there's not damage that we have to work on afterwards. We did have one of those barbecues, because we had rain 2 days straight beforehand, and that looked like a muddy field. It was so tore up. So that took a lot to get it fixed. Although, it was the Hayes, Stan Hayes, they did take care of it. So.
I'm okay with it. I kind of like Shelby's idea about the sponsorship.
Yeah, absolutely. We could do just whatever that typical equivalent would be. Is it this banner to go behind there?
We need all the goodwill we can get.
No, we love that. That would be great.
Just for administrative purposes, can you give me a roll call vote on the waiver?
Councilman Augsburg,
Hey,
Yes.
John, you don't technically have a motion.
Oh, that's true.
I'll make a motion that we, authorize a one-time waiver of the rental fees.
I'll
For the-
second.
Now that I have a motion and a second, can I get a roll call vote?
Councilman Augsburg,
Yes.
Councilman Niner,
Yes,
Councilman Newberry,
Yes.
Councilman Emo.
Yes.
Fair brain going on here. All right, so good. We'll get a banner to you, Carla, for that, and you guys are good for that. No deposit, and hopefully it goes really well, and next year we can sock you for $1,000.
Love that.
Next item is a discussion regarding countywide Central Square CAD RMS project.
Okay, I'm gonna start this one, but Chief Wright will definitely chime in. I'm fairly certain he knows the project a little bit better. Chief Wright and I have previously spoken to you guys regarding the Central Square project. As a refresher, it is a project that is a countywide records management, jail management, and computer-aided dispatch program that it was initiated by the Cass County Emergency Services Board. It's also known as the ESB. You'll hear us refer to them as the ESB repeatedly. The ESB was founded in about 2012 as its own political subdivision, and it was authorized by the voters in the county and they're funded through a sales tax. The ESB engaged the 5 public service answering points. So there are 5 different, if you will, dispatches throughout the county. And we refer to those as PSAPs. They engaged the 5 PSAPs, but not the city managers or any decision makers whenever they initiated this project. The ESB ultimately holds the contract with Central Square and didn't seek any agreements with the PSAPs in advance of the project initiation. Now, less than a month from a go-live date, we're still trying to negotiate the contracts between the 5 PSAPs and the ESB. The initial agreement caused almost every PSAP city manager some concern regarding the complexity of the project or the complexity of the agreement and control of something that ultimately belongs to us. So computer-aided dispatch is something that is within the ESB's control, but the records management and the jail management programs are owned by each PSAP entity. Our major concern as Pleasant Hill was the ever-inflating costs that weren't included in the agreement, such as extra licenses, IT and networking, and then also wanting to bring on a GIS manager so that we can update the CAD system regularly. One of the things that made it after the 5 different, or I won't say 5, 4, maybe 4 different city managers throughout the county had met, we talked a lot about whether we wanted to build into that a discussion about centralized dispatch into the future. And so that did make it into our draft agreement that we sent back to the ESB, that within 2 years we will have a discussion about whether centralized dispatch makes sense. We have some PSAPs that believe absolutely that makes a lot of sense, but Chief and I have been very clear that while we're open to the discussion about centralized dispatch, it will make has to make operational and financial sense before we would ever say yes to a centralized dispatch. I will say one of the things that complicates this discussion is that the ESB owns the dispatch consoles. The ESB as a whole has been generally open to centralized dispatch, and so we don't know at any point, since they own the actual consoles that our dispatchers work on, we don't know when they may force the issue of consolidation of those PSAPs anyway. Most recently, the ESB, and I want to say most recently in the past month and a half, the ESB agreed to pay for the entire initial upfront cost for every part of this project. I will note that the ESB is in deficit spending, and so each of the PSAPs will have to pay the annual cost the ESB will pay the annual cost for the CAD project, but each PSAP is responsible for the records management and jail management cost. It's anticipated that the city's annual expense will be $31,000, and that's a $25,000 annual increase from what we spend today for those services that we already have in place. So it's one of those projects that is kind of forced upon us with an additional cost. And so that's one that we've wrestled with over time on, does it make sense for us to be in on this?
Shelby, how big cost increase was it?
It's $25,000 per year. In the first year, we've already slated this expense to be paid out of ARPA funds. So we have the ability to pay this already, but it would be an ongoing annual budget increase. The ESB scheduled a special meeting for Wednesday of this week, and I really expect a lot of movement, especially with the go-live date of August 13th. I expect a lot of movement before our next meeting, which is on August 12th, regarding this agreement. So I just wanted to have a conversation with you guys on if you guys see any concerns regarding this project, if there's anything that you would like us to voice, because I really think the discussions will center on potential cost overruns, cost certainty to some degree, and I think we will have some other PSAPs that really want to see that consolidation. And again, every single time I've said I won't agree to that contract unless it says we will have a discussion about, not we will centralize dispatch. And so with that, Chief, I don't know if you want to add anything else on the project. Well, you can describe like what it is and your testing and, because that.
So this project started about a year ago last year. So I came in on July 5th, 2022. And this project, one of the first things that I recognize is this project had no contractual agreement between any of the cities and the ESB. And so myself and several other chiefs have been beating this drum for 2 years now. And now we're less than a month away from going live. And we still don't have this financial agreement that says that we support this project. I think overall it's a good project. It does cost us a lot more than what we're used to. I'm not sure that this is the project that they've made it out to be, but it's one that we have to go with in order to keep with our PSAP. So it's just been a costly and very difficult project to maneuver.
So what happens if we don't go with it?
That's a good question. So
That's one we ask
So
regularly.
we
It's
are-
one we ask regularly, all 5 pieces.
I mean, I understand about being forced, but you just balk and say, we're not doing this.
I think there's a potential that we could lose our dispatch and have to go with another agency. And so we would have to pay for those dispatch services, which sounds like it may save us some money, but it really won't. It'll cost us more. Our dispatchers aren't just dispatchers. They're the face that somebody sees when they walk through the door of the PD. They do a lot of other clerical things that we would still require to be done. So by going to centralized dispatching, I don't support it, but I've told these committees that I'm willing to be part of the conversation. And if it's something that has to be done, it has to be done. But my fear is if we don't go with this, we're gonna get knocked out of having our dispatch center.
So you basically have, in addition to the Emergency Services Board, which are elected officials from all over the county, there are some of them that very hardcore believe that they own the equipment. And I think that their power play could be at that point, we're gonna come collect all the dispatching equipment. So basically, just so everybody, citizens understand this, even in Pleasant Hill, if you've ever called 911 on your cell phone, sometimes your calls go to the Summit, sometimes they go other places. Centralized dispatch is not going to fix that problem because 911 goes to the closest tower. I don't even think they know what a centralized dispatch would look like at this point. There's always been talk of a police centralized dispatch and a fire centralized dispatch. There's discussions that everybody would retain their PSAPs. And basically what that would look like is we would still have dispatchers, but they wouldn't work in Pleasant Hill. They would go to the centralized dispatch to work. Anybody answers a 911 call and then they give it to the dispatcher for that community if they're not already on call. But nobody knows what that looks like. And you're not talking about just 5 entities talking here. Every police department, sheriff's department, fire department, everybody has a stake in this, and I think everybody's pretty much asking, for the most part, asking the same question, is what is this going to look like money-wise in the future? And I just don't feel like we get clear answers sometimes. And you have to understand, of the 5 PSAPs, everybody is vying politically to be one of those PSAPs. They want that dispatch center in their city.
It just looks a little odd that they're wanting you to, and I get it, I'm not disagreeing with what you're saying, don't think that. But that they're wanting you to make a commitment and you don't even have an MOU for any kind of, understanding of how this is gonna operate, and who's gonna do what, and who's gonna pay for what, and how.
I'll say that the previous ESP board, I'm not speaking of all the current members, the original ESP board, they really put the cart before the horse on this deal, and everybody now is trying to play catch up. And people have tried to put the brakes on it. I think it was 2 years ago, Nikki Wilson said, why are we not stopping this? And they should have been, but here we are.
Yeah, so Pat, one of the things that we've kind of built into it, the MOU, especially now that the ESB has paid for all the upfront costs, it really simplified the way in which we can write that MOU. One of the things that we're trying to write into this is like, what happened? I mean, would be true of any agency. What happens when we need to add more mobile terminals, right? Like whether you expand or contract your agency, what does that cost potentially look like? And making sure that that kind of almost like per license gets spelled out, rather than Pleasant Hill has this fixed cost, but we don't know how many terminals are in that fixed cost. Like that's one of the things that we were trying to do. So I'm hopeful. I think we will be able to get to that. The other one that's complicated on this project is because you do have a lot of protected records, both on the fire side from HIPAA, law enforcement, you have criminal records. And so there's a lot of firewalls that need to be put in place. There have to be, there are redundancies within that. We spent a lot of time on where a second location was going to be, the second data center was going to be housed. But then just how do you segment that? And then if we eventually end up buying a product that we want to integrate with that, who provides that oversight to make sure that that's a safe connection? I want to retain as much control as I can if it makes sense to me, but then somebody, Harrisonville may not want that because they think it's gonna, create a vulnerability within the system. So you kind of have a cybersecurity layer built into this too. And so from the city standpoint, we're trying to simplify this as much as possible and keep as much local control as we possibly can.
And for the public, something that Kelly and the chief have said too, about, yes, it seems like if you lose your dispatch, that it saves you money, but our dispatchers do more than just dispatch. When somebody shows up at the police station after hours, that's the person they talk to. That's their point of contact. And if, God forbid somebody was driving through town and felt like they were being followed and that kind of thing, that's where they would go to try to be safe. And we would lose that. We would have to find out how that was going to happen, how they were going to monitor prisoners being kept over there. That's a lot of things we have to figure out if we lost them.
I could see it potentially costing having us have another employee. Because if one has to go to that mobile base or wherever you're calling it, you still may very well potentially want to have that base here.
Get out of my head tonight.
Sorry.
That is one. During budget discussions, this always comes up of can we explore it? And I think it was the last budget or 2 budget cycles ago that we looked into it a little bit more. It's a pretty fixed fee that we end up paying, so we kind of could easily calculate how much that would be because it goes on assessed valuation. The challenge was all of these other things that they need to do will probably still need a person there and present, or present most of the time, or we have to overstaff with law enforcement, and then because we may at certain times have to pull somebody off of the road. And so we know it's not a 1-for-1, and that's kind of the message that we've communicated as well. One of the others, Mayor, you know, that you had mentioned, there are different ways to consolidate. I mean, we've talked through, there's co-location where you're just in the same building. That probably would make the most sense for our agencies. Then there's full consolidation, and what the ESB, they conducted a study years ago, probably a decade ago, of each of the different PSAPs, and we're what we call virtually consolidated. So if ours goes down, we can easily reroute to another agency, and we can easily share kind of calls back and forth. So that's what they call virtual consolidation. But in that report, and I think this is one that we're delicately dealing with, Pleasant Hill was noted as one where the smallest PSAP, we're not, you know, it's kind of on an exterior building, everywhere else may have a more interior setting. And so we kind of know that we're the easy target, I guess I should say. If they were to eliminate one PSAP, we know that we'd be one of the easier ones. And that's why I think it does, even though there's a financial impact, I think it makes sense for us to not be the only one to say, we're not doing this. And then I think it also helps from a recruiting standpoint too. Eventually, if everyone else in the county, every other agency has what I'm gonna call the cool new tool, and we don't, I think it just makes us look a little bit further behind the game. So I think, unfortunately, we're gonna be in this project. I think we're too far down the road not to.
Yeah, I honestly think that, Shelby's heard it, I've heard it, Chief has heard it. The other cities may not say it, but Raymore and Harrisonville have both said you shouldn't have your own PSAP and you should get rid of it. Harrisonville wants the PSAP in theirs because they know that once ours is gone, theirs is next. So, I mean, I think it comes down to what the sheriff and what Raymore and Belton figure out when it comes to centralized or that. I mean, they're the big players. The one thing I have told Shelby and Chief is, at some point, you kind of have to know when to jump off the tracks when the train's coming. And if we were ever going to lose our PSAP, I would want to do it under our terms, not being forced to do it. And it's just the lack of a better term, it's the game we're playing right now. And it may be 5, it may be 10 years down the road, but they're going to keep coming for our PSAP. So it's just a matter of knowing when to make that, when the time is right. Hopefully that never comes. So.
Council have any other thoughts or things I need to consider as we get closer to that execution? Okay.
Hold tough, just know when to jump. All right, the next item is a consideration of Lexington Road sidewalk grant application.
Thank you, Mayor. Earlier this year, I had introduced the concept of applying for a grant for the Lexington Road sidewalk project. The grant would be through the Mid-America Regional Council, and it's a federal pass-through called the Surface Transportation Block Grant Set Aside. I still call it the Transportation Alternatives Program, or TAP program. Throughout their application process, they kind of mentioned both, so I'll still call it TAP for right now. Really, this grant provides an 80% federal pass-through cost share for non-motorized improvement projects. The application was required in 2 parts, and so the first time I came to you was, are you okay if we do the pre-application portion? We've received our comments from the first phase, and we're wrapping up the second part of the application, which is due this Friday, July 26th. The project we would like to propose is construction of a 5-foot sidewalk along one side of Lexington Road from College Hill to 163rd Street. The side is to be determined, as each presents a little bit of a challenge. We do have the option, if we wanted to do what we've done along Country Club, where you're on one side for a little while, then you go to the other side. I think it makes the most sense to try to keep it on one side, so the costs you see reflective are right now all on one side. Right now I was looking at the west side of Lexington Road, just because it presented the least amount of conflicts. The project limits, already have few but sparse and fragmented sections of sidewalk, many of which are no longer ADA compliant. The project advances multiple initiatives, including safe routes to school, with school campuses both on the south end and the north end of the project limits. It advances the city's comprehensive plan, which specifically calls out sidewalks along Lexington Road for safe routes to schools. The project connects multiple neighborhoods to activity centers, or at least has the ability then to connect with country clubs, so you could make your way to the soccer complex. Ultimately, it's listed on the city's trail master plan as a connection with a loop ultimately from the Broadway Sports Complex to the soccer complex, along Country Club to Lexington, and then being able to take 163rd in the long range all the way out to City Lake. I will note that we cannot call this one a trails project because a 5-foot sidewalk doesn't constitute a trail. It would ultimately have to be a 10-foot sidewalk in order to be a shared use trail. And I just don't think that that makes the most sense in the context of some of those neighborhoods, especially around the Country Club, College Hill, Myrtle area. I just think it's going to be too much of the yard that would be taken up. But I do think it provides an opportunity for families to safely use sidewalks for recreation. And one of the things that we heard during the comprehensive plan were more areas to teach children to ride bicycles, and I believe even on a 5-foot sidewalk that could be accomplished for children. It just wouldn't be from like what I call a power user cyclist. As I mentioned, it's a federal cost share grant application. The program provides reimbursement for 80% of construction costs and construction inspection costs. The estimated cost for the project, on the next slide, is $1.66 million. The 80% reimbursable share that we would be requesting is $1.33 million, and then the city's 20% share for construction would be $332,600. However, there are other costs because I wanted to make sure that we included our full inclusive cost. So that would be for any utility relocations, legal, engineering, project management fees, or any right-of-way acquisition if we needed any. Makes the city's share on this whole project at $580,904. I requested that this be funded in federal fiscal year 2028, which begins really in October 2027. This allows us to set aside money for the city's match through our fiscal year 2029. So really 4 budget years to be able to set aside money for that. Utilizing those 4 budget years, we would need to annually set aside $145,000. We have indicated in our proposed grant application that the project can be scaled. That's something that they look for regularly. Do you have the ability to reduce your ask or change anything? I've kind of learned that's part of the process that we have with Mark. So I felt it was better to ask for the whole thing and be able to say that we could scale the project. Because then we could take a lesser percentage, or not a lesser percentage, we would change the bounds of the project. In my opinion, it would be changing it, reducing the sidewalk from the north end of the project bounds and trying to keep it in that kind of Myrtle area and then expanding to the north just because we have more of that residential base in that area. And so I think though the application is the strongest because we can say safe routes to school with schools on both ends of it. Additionally, we're making, the claim really, and also based on the comprehensive plan about safety of sidewalks along 7 Highway, the noise, it's not a relaxing walk, but also being able to connect neighborhoods then to 7 Highway or this proposed development at 163rd, that now somebody who maybe doesn't have a car has an alternative path in order to get to those areas. So tonight I'm really asking, is this a project you want us to submit for? Is the cost where you want it to be? Does that sound like something that you would like us to apply for? Or right now, knowing out of the gate, do you want us to scale the project back?
Does that cost include our city staff doing the manual labor to put the sidewalks in?
No, that is all contracted.
Okay.
I'd just soon see you go for it. I mean, can always say no. But you get nothing if you don't ask.
I think it's a great idea. I think it enhances the beautification part of Pleasant Hill, so I like it.
And it makes it so much safer for school kids. Because almost every kid that starts school can't even ride the bus because they don't live far enough away. And so they are walking on the streets. I think that's a very good need that we need to have. And plus, like you say, kids learning to ride bikes or just families going on walks.
I think we've already seen, and Jackie, maybe you can speak to this a little bit more, with the construction of the sidewalks on Country Club,
Yes.
we do see a lot more people use that for
Oh my gosh, yes.
recreation. There's not a day that goes by that I don't see somebody using 7 highway sidewalks for either recreation or just pedestrian activity, transportation.
And there's so many residents on Country Club that we shovel the sidewalk too, like when there's snow or something, because that's helping the people that live in our neighborhood get to where they need to get. I just think I think it's a good thing.
I'm of course all for sidewalks, me who walks every single day. I'm wondering, I know we're just putting money aside to, do we really have to wait till 2007, 2008 to start the project? Is that the only way we can do that?
We would unless I moved up the application date. The earliest we could apply for would be federal fiscal year 2027, which starts in October 2026. We could get all design work ready to go, but that is the earliest that we could start construction.
Okay.
So if that's a desire, we can accomplish that too. Our plan right now is to maximize or utilize funding from the capital improvement sales tax fund as much as possible. If that's not possible, we think that it is, but if it isn't, we have the ability to fund that through transportation sales tax or even park stormwater sales tax if we needed to. And really to some degree, we do know that those will be increasing based on the votes earlier today.
I would like to see the dates.
Me too. Definitely.
That's an easy one.
All right. Any other discussion from council? Anyone from the public like to comment?
I've literally spoken to 90% of the homes on Lexington. I've walked that entire road when I was campaigning. 90% of the people answered the doors, probably 90% of them wanted this sidewalk. Thank you to the city for looking into this, and I would be upset if any of you voted no against it.
We're just making you very happy.
You did what I want.
If there's no other discussion, then I need a motion for resolution 24-23.
I'll make a motion for resolution
I second.
24-23.
Yes, you finish up, sorry. And I second.
Motion and second, roll call please.
Councilman Osborne,
Yes.
Councilwoman Nyman,
Yes,
Councilwoman Newberry,
Yes.
Councilman Eden.
Yes.
All right. Tony,
Not a whole lot to report the last 2 weeks. We've been very focused on the fair, some projects we got completed down there, and then just general setup, tear down, and move. One thing is tomorrow we are meeting with Smyco and Allstate Consultants regarding the Timber Street pump house repairs or improvements. So we will be signing the contract and a notice to proceed from them. So we're hoping within 14, 15 days that we'll be starting on that project. I have had some conversations with one former employee that is interested in back, so we are kind of working on the details there. I do have a couple other applicants that we're gonna probably try to interview for, and I've got a lead on another supervisor position, so other than that,
hey, again, outstanding work on putting that stuff down on the fairgrounds, we had no dust. That was awesome, so.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Tony, on, the pump house, I can't see. On the pump house, how much construction and everything is gonna go down timber? Because of course, like I say, I walk, timber is like crumbling on the edges. Is that going to affect that road at all?
No, it shouldn't.
Okay,
Most of the construction, it'll be just smaller truck traffic.
okay.
It's not gonna be huge truck traffic.
Yeah, I was just looking at that, I'm like, that's kind of scary, but a lot of big equipment's gonna come to work on that
No,
pump
there
house.
shouldn't be a lot of big equipment, it's mostly small, like 1-ton trucks or something like that.
Okay, perfect.
Missy?
I got it. I hope we survived the fair. I think we only had one big major thing, which was the lighting, and I'm not going there because that wasn't my thing, but, other than that, everything I had my hands in went well last week. So thank you all for your time down there and your dedication and letting us do it. I appreciate it.
Kylie? Amy?
A couple things. I had auditors here last week. It actually went pretty smooth. And then I do have some rough numbers of the fair revenue for the main events, and they all are actually over and above our budget, which is exciting. We did have our gate fees increase this year about 15%, so even with that increase, we were over and above what we anticipated. And then just something Nikki Davis and I and Tommy went to up at NPR a couple weeks ago called the Sewer Backup Reduction Program. They presented to us. It was actually really interesting, and it is online, so I think it would be a good thing for these guys to do. They recorded it, so it helps with sewer backups and talking to the public and then different applications and things like that.
Jody?
I don't have anything.
Nikki?
I won't really add a whole lot to the fair. Obviously, we'll have more to come to you all as we will do a debrief. We actually started taking notes, if you want to call it. I mean, we have a form we kind of keep track of that started actually even before this fair started for next year. So we've been adding to it. Again, that is our goal. Ultimately, this is really, I guess, back my second fair since coming back, and the conversation's always surrounding around how we make it better for both the spectators and the participants, all while the goal still remains the same. The fair was established 30 years ago. This was our 30th year, and it was established to be basically an economic development driver within the community. So I guess I'm going to use this little platform, if you'll give me like 2 seconds of kind of, because we hear it ahead of the fair, during the fair, right after the fair. Like, why is it in Pleasant Hill? Like, it's a county fair. Why isn't there other people participating? So the county fair really was established by a group of people that wanted to bring a festival, if you want to call it, back to town. So every city, really for the most part, every community has some sort of a festival in their community in different types, forms, functions, that sort of thing. So a group of folks kind of got together to bring back a festival, if you want to call it, that was similar to what was back in the I think 70s, known as the West Central District Fair that Pleasant Hill hosted. Ultimately, they decided, we didn't have at the time an actual county fair or a festival called the Cass County Fair. So former employee Randy Miller went to the county commissioners at the time, and basically a resolution was passed establishing that the name of our festival would be the Cass County Fair. And that's really what it is. But at the time, the fair was used to ultimately create the camaraderie in the community, and to be used as an economic development driver to bring people to town. And 30 years later, that's exactly what it's doing. So, you hear this, I saw today, and Tommy and I had this conversation just today. Sometimes I feel like that we work or need to work or have to work twice as hard to facilitate what we do down there, what it has grown to be, because we are on a small footprint. And I made the comment, I said, I can't even imagine. Actually, Shelby and I were in the announcer's booth on Saturday night with the rodeo folks, and we have a great relationship with McKellips Rodeo, our stock contractor.
I said, and Reagan said, this is probably one of our favorite events that we do every year. It brings in probably the largest crowd of any rodeo that we put on. And I said, Reagan, could you imagine, because I'm like, it's clear, like, we know how to put on a good fair, like, we got this down, you know. I said, could you imagine what we could do if we had the footprint of the Johnson County Fair in Warrensburg? I'm like, they have, I don't know how many acres they have, I was gonna look it up, but I know it's over 100 acres out there on the north side of 50 Highway that they literally do very little with. I'm like, could you imagine, you know? So while it seems like a lot, we have an incredible team of both staff, liaisons from other communities, specifically on the law enforcement and fire and EMS side, and then obviously a whole slew of volunteers that make it possible. But you know, every year we continue to try to drive to make it better. I feel like this year was very successful. Like Missy said, we had one issue with the lights on Friday night. I dealt with a couple of upset people who didn't want to stick around. We knew that we were not canceling the rodeo. That's just not a thing. Rodeos don't cancel unless of lightning, you know. So we were going to have that rodeo, whether we got done at 11 o'clock or at 4 o'clock in the morning, and really it was about an hour and 15-minute delay. I know the vendors actually weren't mad about it because that made people be able to leave, go get more food, come back in, and not have to miss. So all in all, it was very good. Our team is incredible, and they're probably really sleepy today. I know I am, but I kind of like Missy said, thank you for letting us do it. We feel like it's a great asset to the community. You know, I will add, I had a phone conversation about 8 weeks ago from somebody within the city of Kearney, and it was just asking that. Like, our fair is very unique, and we are actually looked at by other entities. And so the city of Kearney is getting ready to, I'm going to use the word take over, but the Jesse James Festival, who previously had been handled by just a strictly volunteer group, is now coming under the wings of the city of Kearney. For basically that reason. They just need that stability of an organization to kind of oversee it. Again, it takes lots of volunteers. And so she was asking me a ton of questions, and we actually had a lot of good feedback back and forth between it, and ultimately her question started with, you know, we need some help on insurance. And so, but anyway, it was super good. We will have a lot more for you all. I know, like last year we sent out some statistics as far as crowds and you know, dollar amounts and attendees and all of those things to our sponsors, because that's the other huge aspect of it. We couldn't do it without the sponsors. And so anyway, just a little history on it. It continues to grow, will continue to grow. You know, just like the mayor said, the dust control was a big thing we brought up immediately after about day 3 of last year's fair. We've always sprayed water on it, and that's a staff issue, that it takes somebody, a volunteer, a staff member, to drive the water truck to keep the dust down. One, for just the, you know, nobody wants to be filthy dirty, and 2, the safety component of it, and it was huge this year. So, I mean, if I had to pinpoint one specific improvement we made coming from last year's fair to this year's fair, as minor as it seems, dust control to me probably is what it would be. It's just more enjoyable, you know, when you're down there, again, whether you're a volunteer, spectator, or contestant. So we'll have a lot more coming. We sent out things last year to our sponsors, kind of showing them what their sponsorship, the impact that they were able to have, and we'll continue to do that. And like I said, we'll have our debrief, and I will say, just so you all know, one of the biggest conversations that we've had as far as what is our next improvement down there, and that is bleachers. You know, again, we can't facilitate a lot more ground, but there are areas we feel like we can make improvements just on the seating to A, facilitate more people, and B, make their experience better. So we'll probably have a lot more coming towards you all, because that's going to be a very large improvement. But I think it goes back to the somewhat of, you know, Carla's event. We have this space, and we do have the ability to maybe use it more throughout the year than just these weeks, but it's going to take some investment to be able to do that, to attract some of maybe those other events. And I really think at the base of it right now, we're going to have to do some sort of stadium style bleacher. I say stadium, not like fold down seats. I'm talking like aluminum high rise, you know, where you set up above the event a little bit higher type bleachers, to just take our event to the next level.
And so that's where I think our conversations will surround. So outside of the fair, other than that, we actually, like Shelby said, we've had a lot of things going on while we were still working on the fair. So we have the review of our RFQs for our engineer, or for the design build contractors, will be this Friday. After we go through them, so their submissions are due by Thursday at 10 o'clock. So we will literally have to review all of them from basically 10 o'clock on Thursday through our meeting with our owner's rep Navigate on Friday, and we'll shortlist those. And then we had put the information out in the RFQ, so when they were responding, that you would have to be prepared for an interview, whoever the shortlisted candidates are, or companies are, by August the 1st. And so then the following week, we will have our interviews on that, with, again, still staying on our timeline of trying to get to you all by, I don't know that we're still gonna make the first meeting in August, but by the second meeting of August, so then obviously the projects can get started right away. And so honestly, I think that is all I have.
Chief. What a great fair. It was fantastic. Super busy. We were super blessed to have lots of law enforcement there. It was very nice to have a fully staffed department, one that we haven't had fully staffed in a very long time. So lots of outside help from other agencies, lots of cooperation. Our staff was fantastic to work with, so we had a great fair. Very few incidents, very few issues. Opening up the Pine and Patterson lot really improved our parking in terms of crowding up people in front of their house and downtown. So we'll do that again next year. We're already talking about, as an organization, how we're going to do this better next year. Other than that, we have a new SRO. We had a process. Obviously, we promoted Seabury to sergeant, and he was our SRO. Did a great job. Hated to lose him out of there, but we had a process. We had several applicants within the department. After interviews, after visiting with all of them, the school district picked Officer Michael West, who's a newer officer, but a former SRO for another organization, and I think he'll do a bang-up job. So he'll start there this August.
Shelby.
I do have more things. One, I mean, I'll echo what everybody else has said. Thank you to really, I'm gonna say this right here, to our staff. You guys did fantastic work this week, and all of your employees as well. As Nikki said, we can't do it without the volunteers or without your guys' support either. So it was good, and even better to hear, and I know I heard it, Chief heard it, I think Mayor, you did too. People who have lived here for years or decades say this was the best one that they've experienced. I think weather might have helped us a little bit, but still, it was a good feeling to know that we had put that together. So the other one is just kind of a housekeeping thing. There will be 3 weeks before our next meeting. It is a 5th Monday in July, or 5th Monday somewhere, so there's 3 weeks in between our next meeting. The other one that I wanted to bring up is that, and right now this doesn't require any council action, but in the future it might. So Dogwood Energy Plant is interested in connecting to our sewer system. And ultimately they'll connect to our sewer system and they will become a customer of the city of Pleasant Hill, but ultimately their wastewater goes to the Middle Big Creek Sewer Subdistrict. And so later this week, I'm trying to back up and think through the best way to say this. Okay, so the way that Middle Big Creek charges each of their members, like us or the city of Raymore, is they do it on a per connection basis. And so that charge right now, I always forget this, Amy, do you remember? I have it. Okay, is $44 per month, per connection. Well, obviously as a large volume customer, that's not gonna work for Dogwood. And so for a while we've been trying to figure out how is Middle Big Creek going to ultimately charge us, the city of Pleasant Hill, for Dogwood's sewer flow. And so right now we're still not on a flow-based metering system. They will have their own meter so that we can meter how much water was coming through. So unlike our other sewer customers, we'll be checking their flow. But ultimately the proposal that Middle Big Creek is placing before their board later this week is that until we get to flow-based metering, that they will charge the standard, $44 per connection, but we will determine how many equivalent connections Dogwood will be based on their flow. So utilizing, standard customers, they estimate is about 300 gallons per day is what they consider to be a standard customer or connection. That they will take the number of gallons used by Dogwood, divide it by 300 and by the days in the month, to be able to determine how many equivalent customers they will be. I think ultimately what Amy, I just found this out late last week, Amy and I will work through what our typical billing process would be to Dogwood based on our existing customer rates and see if we're able to utilize that same methodology, or if we'll need to adopt any other special rate for them. Just for context, I told you, a typical, what they consider to be a typical connection is 300 gallons per day. An average flow for Dogwood is 80,000 gallons per day. So substantially larger. So they will consume a large number of our connections. And so ultimately they will become a customer of the city of Pleasant Hill, and we will charge them directly. But I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that will be coming up. I don't have any, I think that's probably the best possible solution until we get to flow-based metering. And I think it makes equitable sense too. And Dogwood does not appear to have an objection to that.
Any questions? Anything else?
The only other thing is we are still working through, they will have to construct what will ultimately be probably a public sewer line from their plant to the Middle Big Creek line, which is located just west of the railroad tracks on 175th. We are still trying to figure out exactly what that alignment looks like, and the biggest question for us has still been, we need to talk to you guys about, has been, are there any easements, are there any existing right-of-ways, or do they need to acquire any of them? Typically this happens whenever you're on old county roads and things aren't as clear-cut. We've already had a survey conducted, and I don't think it was conclusive enough for them to determine. So we'll still have to work through some engineering before they become a customer, but we have no concerns about them being a customer. And Middle Big Creek is able to accept the flow, and ultimately whenever they do their plant expansion, they'll accept even more flow. So that's it.
All right. Anything from council?
No.
One of the complaints I saw on Facebook was somebody complained about the number of cops at the fair. Most people we talked to thought it was awesome that every time you turned around there was law enforcement, and they ended up benefiting us having that much law enforcement. So other than that, I can't say enough about staff. No matter what problem there was, you guys figured it out. As far as people that come to it, I know that Pat worked the booth for tickets and talked to a lot of people. Michelle and I stood at the front gate 4 nights, handed out flyers and old fair hats to people, and you thought they won gold. Kids loved it. Man, we met a lot of people from Blue Springs, Lee Summit, that this wasn't their first time at the fair. And spoke to so many people that have lived there their whole lives, and they were, like Shelby said, they were like, this is the most fun I've ever had at the fair. This is the best one yet. I'm just gonna say it for the first time, because I promised an individual I would say it. When we go to repair the bleachers, let's put metal on them instead of wood, so we're not doing this every couple of years. I said it, you heard it. Pass it on, please.
Honestly, John, the first in our conversations, what we're gonna look at initially, obviously you're gonna probably like shoot for the moon and try to land upon the stars somewhere, but is not just covering the existing bleachers, but doing like the full aluminum bleachers with the cases underneath, basically like what you would see at the high school football stadium or something like that. So that's gonna be our initial, try to, again, shoot for the moon and then land, but ultimately we know that is our next step in bettering the environment and bettering the experience for those that come. come and choose to make this a tradition of theirs every year.
And I think another portion of that too is the safety factor.
Yeah.
They're just not safe.
Yep.
I only have one suggestion, I gave it to you yesterday, I think, about the parking over there. Cause I did hear several, not complaints, just people saying when they came up to buy their tickets, you know, about they're way back there in the back 40. So if we could change that, we can't get rid of that parking, but it would help them get up there with some kind of a trolley, or if we could just do what we talked about, you know, about backfilling and making the parking just a little bit better back there.
Yeah, so that was one, really last year was the first year that I remember it happening, that we had so many people that we were parking on like really, really far away. And so we decided at the last minute to run the trolleys through that area.
I know that's difficult because of the,
Might have hit a car at one point, and that made me a little nervous moving forward. And so this year we decided to keep trolleys just on their regular rotation and not put them in that, because then it also does some congestion right at the entrances going across. So at the last minute, or 2 weeks ago, we were like, let's do some sort of what we're calling people movers. And so we rented some golf carts, thinking that was gonna be it. Golf carts don't have any suspension, and so they were very bumpy. And I was like, I rode on the back of one of Mickey's once, and I was like, I think I'm about ready to fall off, like just on the fairgrounds. And so that didn't work out as well as we wanted. So in the future, that is something that we are looking into. I think there are other ways that we can either make it faster to kind of duck through that area so you don't have to walk all the way around, or
I think if we
we'll
could
add
get
that in.
some of that backfilled like we talked, we could make a better path.
I didn't even know there was parking that far back.
I'll
be honest.
I walked it, it's quite a ways back there.
I'll be honest with you, I watched too many movies, man. Chief was taking me back there in the gator and I thought I was gonna get snuffed. That's how you disappear forever.
Mosquitoes might carry you away.
Anything else from council? Need a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?